Welcome to your Rally Point podcast. Organizations need a reason to exist, and people need a reason to care, but none of it matters if you can't connect the two. This podcast is where nonprofits, advocacy groups, and mission-driven organizations discover their rallying point. It is your go-to resource for mobilizing support, building authentic connections, and driving real results. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's rally together to create the impact you're meant to make. This is your Rally Point podcast, brought to you by rallycorp.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your Rally Point podcast. Back here with Jack, my co-host. Jack, it is good to see you again.
Thanks. It's good to be here. It's a nice sunny day here in Seattle.
I was going to say,
it's a great thing.
We can't start a podcast without mentioning the weather in Seattle.
Always.
That should be actually the podcast name. Forget your Rally Point podcast. It's the weather update from Seattle. I love it. Well, hey, we are recording these every week still, but we're releasing them every other week, partly because we've had some changes and transitions in life and things going on, so we're slowing the roll a little bit. But this is episode number 14, which I'm really proud of, Jack. And the reason is often these podcasts, it's really hard to get past 13. So now that we're past 13 and into 14, let's just go all the way to 30, shall we?
Yeah. It's hard to believe. It seems like we just started this the other day.
I know. It's so much fun. And here's the thing. We both love mobile. We love driving engagement. We love the conversation around helping an organization verbalize and tell the story of their why. But as the intro suggests, your why could be really, really good. Your what can be incredible. But if you don't have any who's, you're in a lot of trouble, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're going to get who's, the people that actually power your nonprofit and help it to exist, the humans, that is, you're going to meet them where they are. And where are they today, Jack? Where do you think everybody hangs out?
On their mobile phones, on their devices. I was going to
say Starbucks, but okay. They're on their phones in Starbucks. Yeah.
You know, they say a metric a couple of years ago was really, really interesting. They said that if you left your house and you forgot your wallet, which my wife did the other day, I didn't go back for it. She wasn't driving. I had whatever. Yeah. But if she forgot her phone, she'd go back for it.
Oh, yeah, have to.
And it was a kind of a harbinger of what was to come, and that was probably 10 years ago when I saw that. And this is where we communicate, and we pay $1,200 for one of these things, and we all do it and sign up for it because our lives are on these things.
That's right. And we talk a lot about the channel, like text messaging, and of course now Rally has just added email to its platform, which is really exciting, something that we're rolling out in a beta, which just is code for taking a few customers at a time until we can perfect it. So we're looking for multi-channel, multi-touch. But here's the thing about both email and text messaging is that at the end of the day, people are reading them on their phones. They are in transit. They are in mobile. So if you want to capture someone's attention in the moment on social media, email, what have you, you're doing so on their phone, whether you like it or not. So the question is if they're on their phone anyway, and you're interrupting or you're catching their attention, which, moving them to act in the moment, how can you capture consent and build a textual relationship? Because, Jack, the most intimate relationship that you can have with a donor that will not get you divorced and or fired is textual. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's where our personal lives happen on our devices. We surf, we surf websites, and we have mobile apps, we play games, do all these other things, but personal interaction occurs over text.
And if we're telling personal stories and doing personal work, and we want to engage on a personal level, at some point, there's a right way to do that, which is obviously why we trademark human-centered texting. But the key here is to do it in such a way that you do unto others what you'd have them do unto you, and you build consent. You do it with relationships in mind. Those are our core values: people first, relationship, and then ultimately results. But we are not with text messaging, and now even with email on mobile, because we're so enamored with the technology. We do it because we want to communicate a message, and we would like to not be ignored. Yeah. That is the rally point.
Yep.
Good.
100%.
All right, so let's talk a little bit today, Jack. You and I were, before we kicked this thing off, we were talking about RCS and some of the pitfalls we see coming. There's a lot of talk about RCS. We actually had an entire episode on it. So why don't you just remind us a little bit about what RCS is, and then let's talk about both the pitfalls that we see, some of the challenges that we see with it, but also the things that we will be addressing here at Rally.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm gonna hit everybody quickly with this. So currently, today, standard communication between like an application like what Rally has and a mobile device, or mobile device to mobile device, person to person, Typically that happens over what we would call an SMS or MMS, which is multiple people or a picture or something attached. Text message, we call those text messages. There is a new form of texting that moves in the background, and all this technology and all of what that happens. I mean, it's kind of, you may actually have this communication on your device already, and you're typing up a message to a friend and you send it. The differences really lie in user experience with this new rich communication services, RCS, and how you experience the texting. You might notice, like, you can see when someone's responding back, like we call that is typing. You can see they are typing. Or your message has been read, or they might have a little green bubble there. If you use an iPhone, it's similar to iMessage. And if you use Android, and Android to Android communications had this style. But now RCS is kind of industry wide. It's across Android and Apple and AT&T and T-Mobile, Sprint, and everybody's like, oh, you'll see this in the news, maybe even occasionally now, because it's coming on a lot more stronger, right? But what's that really mean? Well, the panacea, I guess, the best case scenario for all of us is that they keep talking about what I call the Emerald City, right? We see it, the Wizard of Oz movie, you see it off in the distance, and that's what RCS should be. RCS should be like almost like a mobilized mobile website text. If it's like a really good mobile website and a text message, you're texting combined, right? So if you can imagine, like, you go to do a donation and there's a short little movie, or there's multiple, like, hey, look at our work in South Africa, or look at our work in South America. You might be able to flip through some little carousel images, or at the bottom, we call them jelly beans or whatever, but there's maybe
a buttons.
Other people talk about moving maps, like you could zoom in on a map image or whatever, right in your text messaging. And so it really enhances the user experience so much. And it actually is already enhancing person-to-person messaging. So the first rollout of this technology was kind of quiet, but to technology people like you and I,
it's a big deal.
We were like, oh, we were all about it, right? But it was a bit quiet for the normal consumer. But the person-to-person style of RCS, this new technology, was implemented last year. And Apple and Google and everybody got together and said, okay, it's time to do this. And now, what's it mean for businesses? So businesses and nonprofits and organizations that are not sending a message from one phone to another, but from an application like Rally's out to phones, that's still a little bit behind. It's coming. In fact, Rally is working on it and is testing it and things, and it's working. But that's a little bit farther out, and it's because kind of how we use it and how you configure messages with the buttons and the colors and all these other things. That's a definite change than what we have today. And so if you're a nonprofit and you're out there, or you're a small business or an enterprise, and you're out there going, I'm looking for text messaging programs, and you start to see this RCS stuff. Or you might see another term, rich business messaging, or RBM. Some people, we haven't settled on the term yet. RCS,
it's the same
RBM.
thing.
It's the same thing. You might see that, and that's why we're doing this talk.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and so just as a reminder for everybody, if you've been around long enough to have had a flip phone, you'll see one over my shoulder here. I collect these old cell phones. When I find one on eBay that looks like one of the original phones, I can't help myself. I just have a shelf. I think I'm up to 30 of them now. I got a shelf full of them because they're just fun, right? Some of these phones I had years ago when I had my first phone. But if you had an old flip phone, Jack, if you remember, you would text A, B, C. Was the first character, and to get to C, you'd have to hit the 1 to 3 times, and you would just pound, and then pound, and it would take you a long time, right? And I'll never forget when I got my first, I think it was like a Palm Pilot or something, but when I got my first Palm, I'm like, whoa, there's a keyboard on this thing. Like this this was next level, right?
Yeah.
And so we went from that. So that's called SMS. That's the short, I think it's short messaging service.
Yep.
So it's just very, very short, 160 characters. If you want an emoji, you're making one out of a parentheses and a colon, right?
Yeah.
And you can maybe add a little zero in there so the dude's got a nose, right?
Yeah.
So the texting was very simple. And when my wife and I were first dating and even first married, that's how we would communicate. We would just text these little things. In fact, back in the day, I had a beeper, a pager. That was it was numeric. The first pager was numeric, and then came alphanumeric, and I've got a couple of those on the shelf as well. But my very first pager was, I would get a beep, 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 and it would be a phone number, and then I'd have to go call, right? So we started doing codes to each other that were just numbers, right?
Yep.
Because our garage door code to this day is actually one of the first numbers we were sending each other, has a little message to us. So we still use these little digit numbers, right? Okay, so that was SMS, 160 characters, pretty much alphanumeric, not a lot of color, not a lot of emoji, certainly no videos, certainly no pictures. Then comes MMS, and MMS is multimedia service. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. So then we started seeing longer messages that rally up to 1,600 characters. I think it's pretty common. But that's videos embedded in the message. That is, of course, colored
Like
GIFs,
GIFs.
like, GIFs and JPEGs, and the ability to send PDFs and that kind of thing, which has been incredible. That's life-changing because now people are able to say a lot more, right? And include some pictures.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you mentioned in our last podcast is that when people text a picture to a friend, if they're on a different device, like if I'm texting from iPhone to an Android, then the photograph shows up pretty much degraded, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So if you're on vacation with a friend and you're sharing photos back and forth, then chances are when you go to print those photos, they're pretty grainy and they're just not high quality. Yeah. They've been degraded just so they can transport over that MMS, because there is a limit on how big those files can be.
Yeah,
I think it's like 5 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And the carriers, I'll throw I guess T-Mobile under the bus. On US Cellular, they're lower than Verizon and AT&T, but essentially. Yeah. But that's the problem, right? I'm on AT&T, I get this really big message and a high quality message, and I want to rip that over to you, and you're on and it looks all
Well, we ran into this recently with my son's graduation. We're an iPhone family, so we're on iMessage, so it wasn't a big of a deal. But we were sharing photographs between classmates, and some of those were on Android. And then we all went to go print this board for the graduation ceremony, and several of the pictures were grainy. And it's because it was not only passing different devices, iPhone to Android, but it was moving between networks, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And heaven forbid you get a T-Mobile user on Android, man, you're dealing with, like it's almost not worth even sending a picture, right? Yeah. So here's where RCS comes along, and the promise becomes, hey, we're going to eliminate that because these, Apple has solved for it because it's iMessage, stays on network. Apple has solved for it because you can share through the photos, or I think they just call it photos now, but you can share an album, and you're getting high quality images that are 10, 15, 20 megabits because they contain all the location data. When you hold your finger on it, there's that live effect. So all that ability stays on the ecosystem called Apple, but the minute you introduce a T-Mobile or an Android, you lose that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And RCS was really created to create an overreaching messaging platform that
basically
addresses all that.
A big network.
Yeah, it was a big network. And it actually, the interesting thing is, it's in the background and how this stuff operates, it's a totally different way of how things are sent and received.
Yeah.
And all the players in the background are, initially they were freaking out, and now they're trying to figure out how to work with each other and the costs associated with this new era of messaging and data, pictures and data, and how do we what's that cost, and how do we make an RCS message, because it's with colors on it and buttons, and you have like branding now, like people that are using it, like companies that are using it to send a message like buy one get one free. It used to just be 160 characters. Buy one t-shirt, get one free this Saturday. Click here. That was it. It's super simple. Now it's like a carousel of the t-shirts that you might want to buy, and down at the bottom there might be some other selections, extra large. I mean, who knows what it'll be, but it's way different, right? It's and the way it moves through the system is way different.
So we go from multimedia, which is just a nice way of saying, hey, we're beyond just ones and zeros, to now including graphical stuff, but we're still limited on the network because it's we basically just upgraded the existing system, right?
Yeah.
So now a new system comes out called RCS, which is rich communication system. that what you said?
Services.
Services. Okay, rich communication services. And here's why, and I want to just take a quick aside and explain there's two reasons why I think a nonprofit should care about this. Being Rally Point, our whole thesis, the reason for our show, the reason for really us even launching the company Rally in the first place, is the operating assumption that people want to care about what you do, and what you do is important. But if we don't connect the two, it is all for naught. So if we're going to look for areas of natural connection, we're going to, the term becomes mobilize or rally, which is why we mobilize your mission and we are Rally Core. Like we look for the intersection of the human with the device of that's pretty much an appendage, right?
Yeah.
And that's maybe in a future episode, we can talk about glasses and wearables and Aura rings and other things, because obviously we've moved beyond just the pocket now. We've got, we've got fancy smart glasses that are probably the next fight for real estate on our bodies, right?
Sure.
But for now, by and large, the universal, like even late adopters of technologies like my grandma is leveraging her smartphone.
Yep.
So we have mass adoption of a smartphone that is capable of incredible capabilities. Now, as a nonprofit, the first thing we should be aware of is if you're sending video, for example, to a donor, the first thing to consider is your caller ID shown? Do they know who you are? Does the phone number say spam likely because you're not registered? So we've got caller ID, we've got registration with the phone number, so that at least the persona. But what if we could also send your logo along with that message, right? So there's identity, right? There's your registered identity. What if when they got to the link, it was a friendly URL that was identifiable? You're identifiable, the link is identifiable. I'm not clicking on Bitly here, right? I'm not going to get Rickrolled. You remember getting Rickrolled?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get Rickrolled, right? I know what I'm clicking on. So it's an identifiable link. And what if that link was unfurled or unrolled or could be seen in the preview without me having to do a double tap?
Right.
What if when I just got the message, I just recognized it as the thing and I saw some animation there that made it actionable? Like, oh, I know what this is.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have
the logo, a little movie, or a little video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom.
And I see nonprofits sometimes come to us and like, oh, we tried mobile and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, walk me through what you did. Not registered, no caller ID, not a friendly URL, no link preview unfurled, even for a non-contact, no logo identifier, not rich, not even multimedia. I mean, they sent 160 characters that said, me must give now, please, thanks. And it's like, LOL, like it meant nothing, right? There's no context. It was nothing. TKS. Yeah. Right. So like I at one point, I'm an old enough guy, Jack, I'd have a cheat code of all these things and heaven forbid, don't get me started on emojis. I sent an emoji one time to my 20-year-old daughter. She's like, why did you use that emoji? I'm like, I don't know, it looked cute. She goes, Dad, don't ever use that emoji. You don't know what it means. I'm like, okay, well, can you give me a list of what emojis mean? Because I didn't know. Right. Oh, and the other thing, Jack, it turns out you're not supposed to end your text messages with the periods. If you put a period in your text message, you're mad, apparently.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I do double spaces after a period.
Yeah.
That's like 1970s technology. People use single space now.
So I told my daughter, I said, I tell you what, I'll take you to the local barbecue place. There's a barbecue place she absolutely loves. That's our date night. So I'll take you to a date night. Will you just give me all the ins and outs of how 20-year-olds look at this stuff? And like when you go to WhatsApp, when you come out of WhatsApp, like, and boy, I'm going to have her on the show at some point because was super insightful, but she'll tell me anything if I give her ribs. Okay, so the bottom line is, Jack, so now we have rich messaging. And why not? The first reasons why nonprofits should care about this stuff is it will improve your click and response rates to messaging when it's branded and when it's rich.
Yes.
You want to get rich on text messaging? Send rich messages, right?
Right. And what we've been doing in the past, and hey, look, I mean, we have a lot of clients and a lot of customers that do this today. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but the future is something different.
Sure.
And today, I mean, whether you're talking e-commerce, donations, you got a church, you got a small business, whatever, you're always trying to reduce the barriers to someone donating, someone buying your product.
Yeah.
Right. And I've posted a bunch on LinkedIn about dropping barriers, right? RCS drops the barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's recognizable, it's comfortable. You'll see, a branded image, it's immediately familiar, maybe a short GIF or something, but all there. And the future is really a donation form or the ability to donate within that message right now.
And that's ultimately why we jumped into it, Jack, because so just, as a reminder, our rally.so, you can go sign up and get a video with a button on it. So you can embed on your website an actionable video that while it plays, a button pops on the video, and then somebody could be watching the video, click the button, it launches a new tab. They can make a donation while listening to the video. To add a button on, the only way to add a button on YouTube is to subscribe to the channel or look at another video, right? So we thought, well, let's give our users an ability to embed a video that tells a story that's actionable. We call them click-to-act videos, right? So that's great. Okay, now let's send a text message with that video. And so we perfected that, and it's HD. That's great. But we're finding that between devices and between networks, that gets degraded quite a bit. And in no time, through MMS, can that video be clickable? They can click the video to launch a web page that becomes clickable, but there's no way in MMS to overlay an actionable button inside the video.
Correct.
Or to have a field underneath it that says, how much would you like to donate? Like a carousel or a jelly bean, where it allows them to act inside the message. They have to leave the message to act.
Always, yeah.
So
and that's where you lose them. I mean,
and that's where you lose people.
Yep, it's a barrier. So in any of the current texting technologies that people are exposed to today, because RCS isn't here yet for you, there's always a hop, right?
There is,
whenever you're asking someone to get out of the story, to leave the story, leave the
transition,
leave the message, because SMS is really sticky. Once you have someone reading a long MMS message, you got them.
They're there,
right? It's not swipeable like Instagram or whatever. I mean, you kind of got them, but then what do? They click a link and they do the same thing.
Now
And they split and they get distracted and it didn't open or whatever. And where RCS, the entire process from end to end, from engagement to donation, should be contained in a single message. And there's no other platform that does that today.
Well, and I had a customer get mad at me, and I should call him a former customer at this point because it just wasn't a good fit. But because they had a big campaign, and my heart goes out to them. I wish we would have caught it beforehand, so I take responsibility for that. But they came to me after the campaign. They're like, we didn't raise nearly what we expected. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, their click rates were amazing. Like they had some of the highest click-through rates that I'd ever seen, which didn't really gel with me. I'm like, what's happening? Like, why did so many people click on the thing and then not donate?
All through.
And so I decided, like, you know what I'll do? I'll donate $100. Least I can do, right? I'm going to go donate $100 and see what the experience was like. Jack, it took me 60 to 70 seconds to fill out their silly form on mobile. There was no smart wallet, no pre-filled forms. It took me to this janky little page. It was terrible. It was so bad. I recorded a video and sent it to my team and said, let us never, ever deploy a customer again where we don't at least make a donation on their form and test it. Like if they're saying it's a big deal, let's just donate. All of you have permission to donate $25, any customer. Just donate $25, go through the experience. Just please record it. And if it takes more than 20 seconds, then raise a red flag. I want to talk to them.
Right.
Because my reputation's on the line if you send a text message to thousands of people to a really crappy website.
Yeah.
And the executive director appreciated the feedback, and she was very kind about it, and she saw my point. And I hated it, I hated to, be like, well, I'm going to blame another vendor. So I take responsibility and, we made it right with them.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, I cannot be you can send people to a crappy site that takes 60, 70 seconds to complete a form. Like I literally had to go get the credit card out of my wallet because it wasn't taking my 1Password, swipe.
Right.
That wasn't working.
Simple.
Yeah. I don't got a thumbs up. I should have got a thumbs down on that
there
one.
You go.
But all right.
There you go.
Yeah. So my point is like we got to think about context. So we can send videos that are great with stories and buttons, but if they leave the context of the message, you lose them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've preached about keeping people in your message. Like keeping them in your message. And to date, a lot of our clients do a great job at doing that.
Yeah.
And then they get to the end and there's a nice link and we have a rally link for them and they click through. And in the end, we're still moving them off to somewhere else.
Sure.
And your donation or their donation is at the mercy of the system, the donation platform they've chosen. Right. And so, we can only do so much, but actually with RCS, some of this control now lies in one kind of user interface and one donor experience rather than having this chopped up experience still.
Yeah, I like it.
I think the best clients today for Rally are the people that send great messages through Rally and then they move them on to a really slick, like classy not GoFundMe, but classy and fundraise up. And,
Mm.
there's some really great donation, very crystal clear,
Sure. Yep.
donation platforms. And they're the ones that are, really doing well with, moving people in the donor journey. But if you can imagine all that in one RCS message where you have your brand and everything all
It's all
contained,
inside, isn't contained. Yeah.
while the message seems more complex to build
Mm.
rather than just simple text, right? You got to remember that you're combining multiple experiences that we have today into one.
Yeah.
And that's really the future
Sure.
with RCS or RBM, whatever we're going to
And
call
yeah,
it.
and to be clear, for many years to come, there will be a percentage of your audience, and at first a big percentage of people that land on your text that are not going to be able to do RCS. So a vendor like Rally will always have to fall back. So we are perfecting the fallback, and we are perfecting the on page. Like, at least if I got you to the web page, there's a video that's actionable, and I know whether you clicked it or not, and I can trigger an automatic text message to follow up. Heck, I can drop a voicemail and now trigger an email. So we're going to continue on the design for the lowest barrier, or the lowest technology barrier of getting people to a page that's actionable and clear, that's branded, and because everything on the branding side we can do today, custom URL, branded, branded sender, identifiable, emoji, all that, right? So or icon rather. So, and we got them to the page that's clickable. So we removed every barrier we can, including the automatic trigger. Hey, don't forget the text, the shopping cart abandonment, right?
Yeah.
While moving ahead with our more advanced customers to create, and that's the second thing that people need to know, is that it is a little bit more work to create these immersive experiences, these rich experiences. But we've templatized a lot of that for you, and we're actually going to do the design for you, because I'm learning the hard way that if I give the technology to a customer and then high five them and wish them well and check on them in 3 months, they haven't really either done much with it, or they haven't really maximized for mobile.
Sure.
They've sent thousands of messages to a really bad web page, and I'm like, come on. Like, what did you think was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Could somebody have at least, and I asked the executive, has anybody in your team made a donation on this page? Because, here's my credit card. If you want to make another one, like, check it out.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And I hate to be that way about it, but like, it's not, the problem wasn't the conduit. It wasn't the message you had everybody land on the page. It was the fact that nobody could make a donation.
Right.
No one's going to sit there for 70 seconds and type out a form.
On the RCS templatizing of RCS, in technical circles, we've been talking about the end user experience and user interface. And we talked before we started this podcast today, and templates are going to be the way to go. Some of the best software that I use today for communications and some of the other things offers templates. And there's a service I use right now, and it offers me 10 templates, and one of the 10 is good enough. And you can change a couple of colors, and away you go.
We've designed 25, 30 or so social media graphics on Instagram, all that for our customers. And we just have a little invitation in there. If you want more, just let us know. We'll make them for you. Because if I can give a customer everything they need to succeed, just off the shelf, and do the heavy lifting for them, then we're partners in this together. Because I'm not saying, here's a tool, good luck. I'm actually going to show up and help you swing the hammer, show you how to use it. And hey, you know what? This isn't a good time for a hammer. Let's lose this other thing instead.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, and that's success as a service, not software as a service.
Right.
I don't care about the software. I care about the success. Right.
Yeah. But sometimes when you say software, it almost has a negative connotation these days. Yeah. Like, you got to buy software,
Yeah. No, you're buying a team that's committed to this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm excited, Jack. I think RCS is the future in the sense, and here's why. We're moving to more and more of an immersive environment. We've come to expect that as consumers. Yeah. We like immersive platforms. We enjoy our TikTok, and you waste hours on Facebook, right?
Yes.
I mean, I had to take
go
it
down the hole
at one point. You go down the hole. Why do you think that is? It's because you're on a network in a platform that is engineered to keep you with that dopamine hit, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting that we do that necessarily with nonprofits across the board, but I am saying that nonprofits that want to create that immersive experience and leverage that same understanding, that same technology, this is your chance. That's what we're talking about.
It's coming. Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I've been in RCS has been about 10 years in development. When I was at AT&T, I was part of one of the initial RCS teams there. Yeah. So it's been a long time coming, and we're at the very end of this. So excited. And so while I've been, involved in the industry and things like that, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel for the end users and nonprofits and companies and things like that. So I'm excited.
I am excited. Well, that's a good thing. And listen, the right partner will get you there. So it's a question of just working with someone that can help you get there, be it Rally or whoever. But just make sure you see mobile as a means or a method. It is not the end.
Yeah.
It is a machine or a tool to further your message and help you meet people in the middle and move them to act. That's what it's about.
Yes.
The technology is just a tool.
Yep.
So. All right. Well, Jack, thanks for your time. Just remind everybody to stop by rallycorp.com and mash that button or text coach to 24365. We do give out these coaches. We just started our lives and our webinars back. I did one yesterday. Had a few things to work out. But we are now back to doing lives and webinars. We do a weekly live. You can stop by rallycorp.com at the top. You'll see a quick link to sign up for one. But it's a lot of fun because we're just talking about this technology. We're showing examples. I'm taking a volunteer from the audience and I'm saying, hey, would you like to go on a journey and we'll do this together? And it's been a lot of fun. So
I love it.
All right, Jack. Thanks again for your time, my friend. Have a fantastic day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.